Begin the current Daf Masechta Shabbos Daf Gimel. We begin 5 lines down at the top of the Yamid, where our shiur is co-sponsored by Kalzerch and Yecheskel, Torah Anytime, and Daf Achayim. So some of the ideas we're going to speak about in today's Daf is that a Zav and Zava may not eat together, which, as we mentioned that halacha of the Mishnah, once our Mishnah was discussing different harchakas, so we mentioned the harchaka of a Zav and a Zava, where they're not allowed to become to marital intimacy, so therefore they're not allowed to even eat together. We're going to speak about the Yud Ches Davar, the 18 things which are alluded to in the Mishnah that were voted on in the attic of Chananya ben Chizkiah ben Garin, which are 18 decrees that the Rabbanan made regarding different halachas. So our Gemara begins with the halacha of the Mishnah. We said in the Mishnah, and this is actually halacha l'maisa, it's a well-known halacha in the halachas of Nida. When we're mentioning the Mishnah regarding different hachakas, we said similarly, we were talking about hachakas, we said that Erev Shabbos, you're not supposed to walk out with different things, you might forget. So too about not doing a certain activity because you might come to forget, was lo yichel hazav. A zav, the husband, even if he's a zav and she's a zavu, let's say they're both tumah, as the Gemara is going to explain, they're not allowed to eat together. And the reason that is because the eating might come to intimacy, you break bread together, and therefore, which that's a chiyuv of misa if they would have marital intimacy, therefore they're not allowed to even eat together. So the Gemara makes the following diik. Tanya learned in the Brisa. Shimon Lazal Eimer, he says, "Ba'yirei, come and see. Ad heichen parza tahar b'Yisrael. How strong is the laws of purity in the Jewish people? Shaloisha, and then you would not learn in the Mishnah lo yichel hatahir me'im hatameya. We didn't tell you that the tahar man should not eat with the woman that's tummy because of the laws of erva, that they might come to marital intimacy. We didn't have to tell you if he's tar that for sure he's not going to eat the meal with her because they didn't eat meals with their wives that were tummy because they were very careful about the laws of tahara. Ella, rather, what's the words in the Mishnah? Lo yichel hazav im hazava. We had to tell you when they're both tummy, then they might come to eat together. That's what we had to tell you, that even then they're not supposed to eat together, because that might come to bring to sin. But it's interesting to show that they didn't have to tell you hatahar imatameya, which generally, the woman would be tummy because she's a zav, but we didn't have to tell you that because for sure they're not going to eat together because the laws of tahara. But rather, it's even when they're both tummy, we're still concerned for them eating together because of that might lead to marital intimacy. Similarly, lo yochel zav parush zav ha'ma'aretz. Not supposed to have a zav that's a parish that's scrupulous with the zav that's in Amaretz ignoramus, where although they're both the zavim, but one is a more religious person and the other one's not. Shemiyar gilenu etzlei, because he might frequent next to him, and therefore we don't want him to be eating meals together with him. So the Gemara wonders, so if he becomes accustomed with him, what's the problem? Who cares that they become friends? They're both zavim anyway. Elima rather say, our concern is Shemi Chalen Dvarm Tmeim, because the Zav that's Amaretz might feed the Zav who's a parish foods that are Tamei. So because of that, to avoid that, we don't want them eating with him. So the Gemara wonders, what does that mean? Atu Zav parish, what do you think the Zav who is a parish, he could be the biggest tzaddik. Lav Dvarm Tmeim Achel, isn't he himself eating foods that are Tamei? Everything he touches becomes Tamei. For sure, what he's eating is going to be Tamei. Who cares if the Zav that's Amaretz is feeding him Dvarm Tmeim? What does that mean? So the Abaya says, Gezeira shemichalenu dvar m'she'einu mesukan. You're right, it has nothing to do with tummy. The problem is he might come to feed him foods that are not prepared properly, meaning that weren't tight. Which means, say, Amaretz, we know that we're concerned, that's why we have a loch of tzmai, that maybe they didn't take off the tithes. So if he's eating with him, although of course they're both eating tummy foods, and in your state of tumma, that's what you eat, but he might feed him foods that's not tight. They're eating together. He says, hey, what's that chicken you're eating? Oh, here, you want to have a piece of that? He didn't take off whatever the grain wasn't tight. Therefore, we don't want them eating together. That's the problem. No, so that's what I'm saying. Even if they're zavim, it doesn't have anything to do with zav per se. We're saying even though they're both zavim and they're the tamei people, we put them in the other room. Even so, we don't want the zav parish eating with the zav amaretz because he might come to feed him foods that are not properly tight.
Anytime.
Yeah, anytime. But we're saying even if they're zavim, that's the chiddush that we're saying over here. Like we said, even for the case of the man and the woman, even though they're both zavim, we're not concerned about the laws of tumah, but we have other concerns. Like over there, it's concerned of marital intimacy. Here, it's a concern about he might feed him foods that are not properly tight. Now, for Rav Amma, he gives a different interpretation. He says, no, you can't say like Abaya. Because Rav Amma aretz ma'asim hein, most ignoramuses, most regular people, they do take off tithes. And therefore, we would not say you cannot eat together because he might feed him his food, because that would be what's called a gzeir l'gzeira. You're saying not to eat together on the same table together because he might feed him his food, and his food might not be tithe. That's gzeir l'gzeira, because even his food, if he would give him, even then we're not really concerned because most Amoratzim do take off maises, which Taisa discusses how could that be? Isn't that the Gzeira of Demai? And Torah says yes, the majority of people did take off tithes. So that can't be the reason why they cannot eat together. And the Rather says, Rava, the reason is Shemi he rugel etzloi v'ichlenu dvarim tameim b'mei taharasai. You're right, now he's feeding him things that are tamei. We're not concerned because he's a zav anyway. Of course he needs dvarim tameim. But the Jewish people are very meticulous about laws of Tahara. Kahanim, of course, have to be careful. And even people, they eat Chulin in the state of Tahara. We don't want people eating Dvarim Tameim. So even though now he's Tamei, but since they can become friendly, when he becomes Tar, he's going to say, oh, remember that chicken we were eating that day? Remember that rice dish? And he goes and he sends it over to him. Then it's going to be Tamei. And then when he's in the state of Tahara, he's eating Dvarim Tameim. That we don't want to happen. So therefore, even when they're Tamei, don't eat together with them. Because you might become friends with him, and he's going to send you b'mei tahara, things of tumah. That's the reason why you're not supposed to eat azav parish or azav am arz. Now we continue with these laws, which in laws of Yeridei are called laws of harchakas. It's distancing in the state of a husband and a wife when she's a nida, because it might lead to marital intimacy. So the following question, which relates back to the halacha that we were discussing before, and it's actually going to explicitly come back to the halacha of the Mishnah. Nida, a menstruating woman, ma'u shetishnim baila. What's the halacha? Could a woman that's a nida sleep with her husband in the same bed? For example, as Rashi says, must be that he's also tamei, so we're not concerned about the laws of tahara. Or in today's times, we don't have the halachas of tahara. What's the halacha? Could she sleep in the same bed? He bebigda, she's wearing her clothing, but who bebigda, he's wearing his clothing. In other words, are we concerned because if they're sleeping in the same bed, that might lead to sin, to marital intimacy, or maybe, and this is going to be a very important point, since there's a recognizable difference over here. They don't usually go to sleep with their clothing together, so therefore they're going to recall, they're going to remember, they're going to know that not to come to marital intimacy because they're wearing the clothing. Maybe that would be sufficient to remove the problem about leading to sin. And maybe that they could sleep together in the same bed. Some Rabbi says, Tashma, let's bring a raya. They're going to try to bring a few different rayas and rejects them. We learned in the Mishnah Masechta School that says as follows. Ha'ayif, the chicken, is oile magvina. It could go on the table. Oila magvina goes with the cheese al hashulchan on the table, which, as Rashi explained, which is halach lemaisa. We mean specifically the table that you're eating on. If it's the buffet table, then everyone agrees it's not a problem. What we're discussing over here is, could it go on the same table? Beishamai says, this first opinion says, you could put it on the table that you're eating, and you could put the cheese next to the chicken, but ve'ein nechel. But you cannot eat the cheese with the chicken together. And the reason is because this opinion is the opinion of Beis Shammai, as the Mishnah says, Divri Beis Shammai. They hold that chicken with cheese is not biblical. It's only meat from an animal with milk. That would be basa b'chalav. So therefore, we're not going to make a gzeira of not putting it on the table because you might come to eat it, because that would be a gzeira l'gzeira. As it is, eating chicken with meat, with milk, is only rabbinic. So to say that you cannot even put it on the table because you might come to eat it together would be gzeira l'gzeira. So Beis Shammai says, look, you could put it on the table, but you cannot eat it together. Basilam, as we actually rule, we rule like this, halach l'maisa, loy oila v'loy nechel. No, you cannot put it on the table, and you cannot eat it together with the milk. But one thing we see from Basil is that you're not allowed to even put it on the table because you might come to eat it. So the Gemara seems to understand that this is similar to the case of the couple in the bed, which is they're not allowed to be in the bed because it might come to lead to marital intimacy. That's the same thing as putting a food on the table, which you might come to eat. You have something that's near each other that might lead to the next step. That's the same thing about being in the bed together might lead to the next step. Says the Gemara, no, Shani Hasam, there it's different. By putting the chicken on the table where we said it's usher, the leked deis, where there you don't have two people, opinions that should remind each other. By the bed, you have two different people. So even if he's going to make a move or she's going to make a move, something's going to happen, the other one's going to say, hey, wait a second. This is forbidden now. In the case of the chicken on the table, you're the only guy. You're the only one. So very quickly, in the middle of eating, you might just take that cup of milk, and that's it. You just did basa b'chalav. So Rashi actually says the Gemara could have easily said that the case of the chicken doesn't have any deviation, any change to recognize, because in contrast, as we're going to see regarding being in bed, they're wearing the clothing. That's also a shinoi. There's two ideas we're discussing really: shinoi, a change, and also regarding deis. But the better one is that the fact that there's no two opinions. That's why the Gemara says that leka deis. It could have just easily said leka shinoi, but there's no two people. So therefore, by the case of the chicken, that's why it's going to be aser, because no one's going to remind you. But by the bed, the other person from the couple, the spouse, could remind you. Therefore, there it's possibly going to be mutter. And the Gemara actually says, it's actually logical to say like we're saying now. The heichad is where there are different opinions that actually shani, there it's different, actually would be mutter, even in the case of the chicken, even regarding basar b'chalav. Why? The Tani Sefer, actually look at the end of that Mishnah Masechtas Chulin. Says Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg, he says, if you have shnei achsanoim, you have two guests, two lodgers, two people that are coming together in a place. They could eat together on one table. Zechel basa, one guest could eat meat. Zechel giving, the other one could be eating cheese. We're not concerned. Wait a second. Didn't you say you can't have chicken and milk on the same table at the same time? How are you allowed to have two people eating together on the same table? You know why? Because when did we say it's aser, is halo atu achila? When you're the only guy eating. In the middle of eating, you might make the mistake. When there's two different people, then the halacha is that the other one will remind you, say, hey, you're fleishik, what are you doing taking? So there we see that's actually going to be mutter to eat together. That's exactly the case with the couple in the bed. Maybe it is going to be mutter. And the Gemara, however, asks on this, says, wait a second. Didn't we learn on the halacha you just said of the Sefer, the Mishnah over there regarding the two achsanoyim that Amr of Chanan Bar Ami Amr Shmuley says, Lo Yishon, we didn't learn only if these two guests, they don't recognize each other. And therefore, you're not going to have one guy reaching out to the other guy's plate. So, wait a second, what do you got over there? Right? Who are you? You're not going to come to eat from the other person. That's when we said it's mutter. But actually, we qualified that Allah when He says, Avol, Makirin Zezeh. But if let's say they recognize each other, then Asurim, then it's actually forbidden to eat together two people. So then says the Gemara, wait, we're back to the point. So here, when you have a husband and a wife, hopefully they're Makirin Zezeh, and then they obviously recognize each other. And then obviously we should be able to answer the question that it would be usher for them to sleep together in the same bed. Because even though it's two different people, two different opinions, but if they recognize each other, they're friendly with each other, then we are concerned that they might come to engage in an activity with the other, just like they're not allowed to eat together. So maybe here they're not allowed to sleep together. Which the Gemara says, no, hachi hashi, can you compare the cases? Hasam over there by the achsanoyim, by the two guests. Deyos ikka, you're right. There you have two different opinions. Shinui leka. You don't have a deviation, you don't have a change, which it's not they're eating in the normal way that they normally eat, which is actually halacha l'maisa, that when you have two people that eat together, although it's forbidden if they recognize each other, but if there's a shinoi, if let's say one makes like a heker, what we call it, which is both eating regarding, as we're going to see, regarding a nida, or regarding, let's say, basar b'chalav, if someone's eating milk and you're eating meat, you should have some type of, you're eating on a bag, you're going to make some type of recognizable siman. There, yeah, that would help, but in the case that we're describing, where there's no shinoi, then it's going to be usher. But here where the couple is hachol, but here ikadei not only is there two different opinions, where you have the man and the woman, but the ikar shinoi, there's also a change. Because they're not sleeping the way you normally sleep. The halacha requires that you sleep without any clothing regarding marital intimacy, because it says she'er k'susavay nasa. The Gemara says she'er means skin, means flesh. What that means to say is regarding marital intimacy, it requires a closeness of the skin. But let's say one of the couples says, I don't like this I need the clothing. So the halacha actually is the Gemara Ksubas that says that you have to go ahead and give a ksuba. You have to go ahead. You're forced to pay up the ksuba because that halacha requires that it be with kiruv basar. So since now that they're sleeping in the same bed with clothing, which is not the normal way, what size? What's going on over here today? Why is? Oh, okay, because you're a nida. I get it. So not only is it two different people, there's also shinui. There's something different over here. So then maybe the halacha would be that it's going to be mutter. Over there, by there's two achsanoim, the two guests, there's no change. You're right, there's two different people, but it's regular eating. So regular eating, by kiddush together, you might come to eat from the other guy because you know him. Then it's awesome. But maybe it would be mutter, as actually the halacha is like that. When you make a heker, you make a shinui, that then it actually would be permitted. So the Gemara says actually what we just discussed, that those who wanted to say it like the opposite of a resolution. Tashma, that they wanted to bring from that Mishnah Masechtas Chulin, from the Sefer. Presumably, he says, which we brought as a rejection, they start off from that Sefer. Presumably said, two random people are eating by one table. Zeb Basab is like giving the one's eating meat, one's eating cheese. V'idmalam, we said regarding that halacha that Amr of Chanan Bar Amir Shmuel says, Loishon, we didn't learn this halacha that they could eat together. Elishain Makirin Zez, only if they don't recognize each other. Ava Makirin Zez, but if they're friendly and they're eating on a picnic table, then also it's forbidden for one guy to be eating meat, one guy to be eating cheese. Now, so says the Gemara, V'hani Nami, so the Nida and her husband are also Makirin Zez, and they also recognize each other. and therefore it should be forbidden to sleep together in the same bed. So the Gemara is starting off that way to try to show that it's asur. That says the Gemara, no, Hasam over there by Vachsanoyim Deyasika. There are different people, but Shinu Lekar, there's no change, there's no difference, so therefore it might come to lead to eat from the other person. Hach over here, Ikadeyas, there's different people, and the Ikashin is also a change because they're sleeping in the clothing, and therefore it might be mutter, so therefore the Gemara does not prove it from there. The Gemara continues and says, Tashema. Let's bring a right from the halacha of our Mishnah. This is where it relates back to our Mishnah. The Mishnah said, when we were talking about all the different harchakas that we require, don't go out Erev Shabbos with different types of things, because you might forget. Then we said unrelated halacha, but it's also a harchaka. Lo yichal hazav mazava. The man who is a zav, he had a certain discharge that makes him tummy from his male member. The female had from her, so they're both tummy. We said still they're not allowed to eat together, the husband and wife. Mishum hergel aver, because it might lead to sin. Now, as the Gemara is obviously saying, if you're telling me they're not allowed to even eat together, for sure they can't sleep together. You're telling me they can't eat together, they might come to marital intimacy, and you can tell me they could sleep together in the same bed, that's not going to lead? Of course that's going to be awesome. Says Gemara, no. Hachanami here also, by the eating, you could say deyes ikka, that there's different opinions, but shinu leka, but there's no change, there's no difference, they're eating in the normal way. Whereas when they're sleeping in the bed, and they're sleeping in the bed with their clothing, so that's going to serve as a reminder to show you that this is something that's forbidden for us, and therefore we have a shinoi. Then actually it might be mutter, which actually that's the same halacha regarding eating. Although the zav not supposed to eat the zav, the husband not supposed to eat with his wife. That's a nida. But if they make a harchak, if they make a heker, a recognizable shinoi, then actually that would make it permitted, and therefore again there's no raya. So the Gemara says Tashema. Let's try to bring a different raya. There's a pasuk in Yecheskel that says, when it talks about the righteous person, it says El Haharim, to the mountains loy achol, he has not eaten, which the Gemara in Sanhedrin of Pe'alef and Manaf explains what is El Haharim. Haharim always refers to the others, the fathers, which he does not provide himself a parnasa in the merit of his fathers, because he doesn't require it, because he's a righteous person. So Laharm lo echel mitzvah doesn't have to come onto the schus of the others. The ein of leinasa el giluli beis Yisrael, and his eyes are not lifted up to the idols of the Jewish people. He doesn't do avodah zarah. And it says ve'es eishes re'eu lo yitimeh, he does not defile his friend's wife. Ve'el isha nido lo yikav, and he does not come close to a menstruating woman. So we see, says the Gemara, and actually this halacha lemaisa, that makash isha nido lo eishes re'eu. And the place can actually talk about exactly how far does this go. But we compare a woman, even if it's your wife, that's a nida, to your friend's wife. Whatever is forbidden with the friend's wife is forbidden with the wife that's a nida. Which ma'ish is re'eyu, and therefore they talk about even the wife singing, they talk about these types of things. They literally compare it. But in our context, our Gemara, the Gemara says ma'ish is re'eyu, just like his friend's wife. Hu be big da, he be big da. If he's wearing his clothing, and his friend's wife is wearing her clothing, Asr, obviously it's forbidden for them to sleep in the same bed, because as Rashi says, you're not allowed to be secluded together with another woman. Taisa says a different interpretation. He says obviously logic would dictate you cannot sleep in the same bed as your friend's wife, because obviously your desire and lust is going to be very strong regarding this forbidden erva. Obviously you can't sleep together in the same bed, even if you're wearing clothing. And it's saying, it's comparing the Isha Sre'ehu to the woman that's a Nida. So Af Ishtei Nida, so obviously telling us also regarding his wife that's a menstruated woman, who be big da, he be big da, Aser, that even if they're wearing the clothing, it's going to be forbidden. Shema Minan, that's actually the Gemara's conclusion, that Al Dine Harchaka, in this it seems like we're learning it out from a Hekesh, is that you're not allowed to sleep in the same bed, even if they're wearing the clothing, if the woman is a Nida. And that's the Gemara's answer to the question that we had. But says the Gemara, Pliga, this resolution of Rav Yosef, that he just resolved it from the interpretation of the pasuk to show that it's Aser, disagrees with the Reb Pedas. Because the Amr Pedas, he says, the Torah did not make it forbidden. Ella, kurva shel gila rais bilvad. The only thing that's biblically prohibited is a closeness of the uncovering of the naked part, meaning to say regarding tashmish, regarding intimacy. But all other curves, all other closeness of contact, even touching of the skin, is only rabbinic. So therefore, it says the Gemara, the way Rashi understands it is, if they're wearing the clothing, then even rabbinically we're not going to make a decree, because the whole dairais is only actual intimacy. And touching with the skin, hugging with all these things is going to be rabbinic. So with clothing, it's not even going to be rabbinic. So therefore, we see that he's disagreeing with what we just said, that the Gemara's conclusion is that with their clothing is going to be forbidden. Shemak says a pasuk in Vayikra, it says, Ish al kol she'er b'sari, every man for the close relative, lo yisikravu, they should not come close. What's lo yisikravu? Legalis erva, to reveal the nakedness. So you see when it says lo yisikravu, it means legalis erva. So when it says el isha nidu lo yikarv, it means gila arayis, it means actual tashmish. And even if we're going to make rabbinically forbidden, it's going to be only the closeness of the skin. But with clothing, then Reb Pedas would hold that actually would be permitted. Now the Gemara brings a story related to this halacha of what's considered closeness of Gila Rayis. So Ula, ki have asim beirav, when he would come home from yeshiva, have a menashik lula achvasa, he would kiss his sisters abechadayu on their bosom, on their chest. Vamalan, some say abeyadayu on their hands. So says the Gemara, but he disagrees with his own teaching. Because the Amma Ula, and we actually rule like this teaching we're saying right now. The halacha is afila shum kurva, any closeness is usher, is forbidden with one sister, with any erva. A sister is an erva like all other rayas. The only type of closeness that's permitted, like a father with a daughter or with a grandchild, but with a sister, the halacha is said that basic halacha that's forbidden. Mishum lech lech amrin nazir. The reason why that is because we tell the nazir to go away. Schar schar, go around like Carmel Sikriv. Don't come close to the vineyard. In other words, the nazir is not allowed to drink wine. So we tell him, Hezachzi, don't come into the vineyard even, because you come close, you come to the tavern, you come to the joint, you're getting too close. It's not appropriate for you to come close because it might lead to sin. That's the same thing. We don't do any kirva of arayas, and therefore one is not supposed to go ahead and hug his sister the way and kiss him the way Ula did. But Taisa says that Ula knew regarding himself that he's not going to come to sinful thoughts, and he was a totally righteous person. As the Gemara brings in Ksubas that they were Talmidei Chacham that would take the kala on their shoulders and dance with them at the chasna. And the other rabbi said, "What's with us?" He says, "Look, if you think of her and feel with her like she's a beam, like a pole, then go ahead and do it. But most people can't do that, and therefore we pass and we rule the halacha is that one is not supposed to do any touch. If a person is a grace and tzaddik, then the Gemara is telling us that then he's allowed to, like Ula did." But the Gemara didn't go through the cheshbon to tell you that, but that's why it's not a contradiction. He did it because he was allowed to. Every other person could go ahead and see if you don't come to any sinful thoughts. If it is going to, that's the pasuk that we're saying, that leisikrevu, that's telling you leisikra of like a nazir, don't come close to do such a thing. Now, a related story to this halacha regarding the hachakas that are required between the husband and the wife when she's in her state of nida, the Gemara brings Tanid Be'Eliyahu. It was taught in the yeshiva of Eliyahu. Ma'isa b'talmid echad. There was a story with a certain student, Shana Harba. He learned a lot. V'kara harba, he read a lot. V'shimish tamid chacham harba, he attended to many great Talmudic scholars. Umeis b'chatzi yamav, and he died in the middle of at the height of his days, half of his life. Now v'hisi didn't tell his tefillah, so his wife took his tefillin. Umachzarosam b'bati kenesiyas b'bati medrashos. She went around to the shuls, to the bati medrashos. From them, she said to him, "Ksiv b'Torah, it says in the Torah in the Devarim, ki hu chayecha, because it's your life. V'arichamecha, lengthens your days." Bali, my husband, Shoshana Harbe, Bakara Harbe, he learned a lot, he read a lot as he continued on his days. V'shimish Tamid Chacham Harbe, and he attended to many great scholars, means to say that they explained to him the difficult Mishnayos and the reasonings for them, which that's what we call Talmud. We call that the Gemara. Why did he die in half of his days? No one could give him an answer. That's what we hear from Reb Chaim regarding the corona. You learn Shas, it protects you. She's asking us a good question. And no one had an answer because you learn Torah, it protects you. So, but Pamachas Nisarachti Etzla, the one who's teaching this Brisa, says one time this Talmud Chacham was saying, I visited by this woman, this Almana. She was telling me over this whole story. How could it be? What happened? How could he die? He was such a great Talmud Chacham. The Martilan, I said to Abiti, my daughter, in your days of Nida, meaning Nida is when a woman has a menstrual blood, from that first discharge, for the next 7 days, she's considered biblically as a Nida. Whether she has dam or doesn't, for the next 7 days, she's a Nida. Ma'u etzlacha, what was his state with you in those 7 days? Amar li, she said to me, Chas v'shalom, heaven forsake, afila be'etz b'katan, this is actually the halacha l'maisa by Nida, even with his pinky, with his tiny finger, like Nagabi, he didn't touch me, that's forbidden during the days of Nida. Okay, it says, B'meili buncha, in your days of white. What does that mean? So, for example, a woman that's a zava, which actually today, in practical, we treat every woman that like a zava. If a woman that's a zava, which if she saw 3 discharges in the 11 days between the days of Nida, what happens is, if she has those 3 discharges, she has to now count what's called Shiva Nikiyim, 7 clean days from when she stopped seeing any dam. So that's why we generally have 5 and then 7, because to create the days of when you have no more discharge. Now, in those 7 days, she has to wear white clothing. And the reason why is because it has to be able to be used as an inspection to see if she has any discharge or not, because if she had any dam, that's going to undo the 7 clean days. So that's why it's being called b'meili buncha. In the days of when you wear white clothing, ma'atzlacha, what was his state like you with then? Like Taisa explains, really it doesn't make a difference, because nida and the shiva nikim, you all are considered in halacha like the same nida. It's just because this Talmud Chacham knew the story happened in the days of her shiva nikim. That's why he asked, but really it's the same thing. It says, and what was his state with you then? Oh, so she said, Achli me, he would eat with me, b'shasei me, he would drink with me, b'yashne me, b'kir basa, he would sleep with me without clothing, clothes of flesh. But v'lo also daital daba ach, he never thought about anything else. He never thought about doing marital intimacy. Which, as Tais explains also, that his mistake was an interesting custom they had in Talmudic times, that since really the halacha that we treat every woman like Shimon Nikiyim is only because of a concern that they had, they would taival actually 7 days after the woman had her discharge. So biblically, actually, she was tahar. But then, rabbinically, because of the Gzeir by Reb Zera, they would wait till she had Shimon Nikiyim, so they would immerse 2 times. After the first immersion, he thought that it's okay already, you could be a little bit more lax in these laws, so he didn't have tashmish, but he would do some things that he wasn't having the harchakas regarding the days of Nida. V'amarti la, and says the Tamacham, I told her, Baruch HaMakom Sha'aragi, Hashem should be blessed that he killed him, Shlei Nasa Pam La Torah, because he didn't show any favoritism regarding the laws of the Torah. Because the Torah says, a woman in her state of nida when she's tameh, which, as we said before, until she immerses in the mikvah for her totality of her immersion, she is in her state of nida, which we learn now from the pasuk that says tia benidasa, which the word tia says that she should continuously be in that state of nida until she goes and immerses herself in the water, as the Bryce says in Teres Kahanim. Loisikarv, don't come close, which that tells us regarding the laws of Archaka, a woman that's a nida, you're not allowed to go ahead and eat and sleep, and Rashi and Taisa brings from Rashi that you're not allowed to pass things. We have certain harchakas, and therefore Hashem should be blessed that he killed him, because although he didn't have intimacy, but he didn't fulfill the laws of harchakas, and therefore he died. Now the Gemara actually qualifies, he says, Mita Chadahavya. What it was is, this case that we were discussing before, they were sleeping on the same bed. It was a very wide bed. It could have been who knows how big, king, queen, whatever it is, and they didn't touch the skin. And he thought, okay, that's okay, I'm not even touching her. But that's what we said before, the laws of Archaka required that you're not allowed to even sleep in the same bed, even if they're wearing clothing. And B'Marava Amri in the West, they said, in Eretz Yisrael, the Amar B'Yitzba Yosef, he says, sinner, which are these knickers, which are, she girdled herself from the waist down, mafsik beinoy lebeino, was separating between him and her. So they couldn't even have marital intimacy because there was clothing that was tightly girdled onto her, and even so he thought that's okay because it's not going to come to lead to sin. But even so, the halacha requires you not sleep together in the same bed, and he did not fulfill those harchakas, and therefore he was killed, and therefore he says Baruch HaMakom Sha'araga. Now continuing the halacha, the next Mishnah that says Ve'elu min halachas she'amar ba'ali is Chananya ben Chizkiah ben Garin. These are from the halachas that were said in the upper story in the attic of Chananya ben Chizkiah ben Garin she'alu levakar, that they came to visit him. Which, as we're going to say in the Gemara, why was it that they came to visit him? Now, Nimnu, they counted all the Talmidei Chacham that were there in the attic at that time, and they found out that there were more students of the school of Shammai than the school of Hill, and they decreed on that day 18 different decrees. Now, this is going to be one of the more difficult Gemaras, as we generally have regarding the laws of Tum and Tahara, which is going to be the context of these 18 things. But first, the Gemara opens up, only by Rabbi Yosef. He says, they wanted to know regarding the Girsa of our Mishnah. Elu Tanan, is it without a Vav that these are from the halachas? Or there is a Vav, and these are from the 18 things. As the Gemara explains, what's the question? Is it ve'elu tanan, and that would mean hanudah maran, those that were said before now? Meaning, if you're saying ve'elu, as Tais explains, we know a famous Rashi in Parshas Mishpatim as a ve'ela Mishpatim that says whenever there's a vav, it means and, it's connected to what was said beforehand. So therefore, it's going back on the previous Mishnah. Our previous Mishnah said on Shabbos, lo yefales kelov, you're not supposed to take the lights off your clothing, v'lo yikra, you're not supposed to read la'or haner, to the lights of the candles. And if you're saying with our Mishnah, ve'elu, it's saying, and these, what we're going to say, are also from the previous, are that from the 18 things. Or maybe elu tanan. Is our Mishnah saying without a vav, these are the things? Meaning that would mean to be inun lamema l'kamon. Regarding what we're going to see later on, meaning there's a mission later on, if you Zayin and Beis, that continues and says, you're not allowed to soak the ink on Erev Shabbos because what might come to lead. So what are we saying is, because actually our Mishnah doesn't describe what the 18 things are. Our Gemara is going to quote, what are the 18 things? So it doesn't even say in our Mishnah. If you're learning Mishnais, for example, you don't even know what this Mishnah is talking about. You have to look at the Bar Tanura, who goes through and says, what are the 18 things? But when it says Elu min halachas, which Elu? The next Mishnah or the Mishnah beforehand? The Elu would say it's the previous Mishnah. And these are from those things. Or is it Elu that we say, and these are the things which are the next Mishnah? So what's it going on? Says the Gemara Tashma, it's being a raya that it's going on the first two things we mentioned in the previous Mishnah, because actually the next Mishnah is not from the 18 things. The Gemara is going to explain what the 18 things are, but the next Mishnah of Ein Shur and Diyoi, whatever, are not even from the 18 things. How can we prove this? Because the Brisa says, "Ein poilin la'or haner." You're not supposed to go ahead and check for the lights to the light of a candle. The ein karin la'or haner, and you're not supposed to check, read something to the light of a lamp. Ve'elu min halachas she'amar bali is Chananya ben Chizkiya ben Garin, and these are from the things that were taught in the upper story of Chananya ben Chizkiya ben Garin. So Shema Mina, obviously we could infer that ve'elu tanan in the Brisa it says explicitly ve'elu Shema Mina, which Taisus wonders, well, we had the same question in the Mishnah, although our Girsa is ve'elu, we want to know, is it really elu ve'elu? So why wouldn't the Brisa be the same thing? So Taisus explains, actually the Raya is not because it says ve'elu, because the Mishnah also says ve'elu. It's because after these words, it doesn't say anything in the Brisa. It just ends. It said, ein poilin and ein kairin, and it says ve'elu. It doesn't say anything afterwards. Obviously, it's going on what it said beforehand and not what afterwards, and therefore that's going to be the same in our Mishnah, that's going on what it said before regarding those two halachas. That's from the 18 things, but the next Mishnahs have nothing to do with the 18 things that were decreed on that day when they had more of the students of Shammai than they had from the students of Yisrael. Now, turn about in the Brisa. So who is this Chananya ben Chizkiya that our Mishnah is talking about him? So the Brisa says like this, Mikasa Megillas Tainus, who wrote what's called the scroll of the fast, which the reason is because in Talmudic times, before Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, all Mishnayos and Brises, they didn't write down because you were forbidden to write down Torah Sheba'al Peh. You have to read Torah Sheba'al in a sefer, and you're not allowed to write down Torah Sheba'al Peh. That's what's called the oral law. Now, what happened is that they would write down, however, certain things that they wanted to recall, and specifically that certain days that were forbidden to fast because they were Yom Tovim. That was called the scroll because it was written in the sefer, because everything else was not written down. So they called it Megillas, because this was a scroll that was written down of Tainus regarding the days that we don't fast because they're Yom Tovim. So who wrote that Megillas Tainus? They said it was Chananya ben Chizkiya b'Siyata. It was this Chananya ben Chizkiya and his colleagues. Because for them it was very dear to them the difficulties that the Jewish people went through and that they were redeemed from. So it was very dear to them, the miracle, to recall it, to praise God for it, and therefore they wrote down the days that miracles happened to make a Yom Tov, which it says over there, Ilin Yoimin Deloy Lisanoi, behind these are the days when you're not allowed to fast. That's called Megillas Tainus. It's not the days that you do fast, the days that you don't fast. And you don't say Tach, and those are the things that were from the days of Megillas Tainus, he's the one that wrote it down. Now, Amr Shemli, he comments regarding the comment that we just said. He says, Af anu mechaven es tzars. It's also dear to us, the difficulties that we go through and that we're saved from. He says, but what should we do? If we would come down to write down the days of the miracles that happened to us, it wouldn't be sufficient because we have constantly miracles that happen to us. Every single day would be a Yom Tov, so therefore we don't write down, we don't have Megillas Tainus too. Or Deva'acha, another interpretation is Ein Sheit Nifka, which means an imbecile doesn't get attacked, which means to say, a fool, they say ignorance is bliss. In other words, we don't recognize all the challenges that come to us, and therefore, we have so many miracles, but we don't recognize, therefore we don't make a Megillas Tainus. It takes someone that really knows and understands what's happening to realize the miracles, the miraculous nature, what happened, so they wrote Megillas Tainus. But we don't know what's going on even. We don't realize how much we're saved from, and therefore we don't write our own Megillas Tainus. So a third interpretation is Ein Basar Ames. You don't have that the flesh of a dead person to be margish b'zemel, that to feel the scalpel, which means to say basically we don't chap, we're so numb that we don't realize all the miracles that happen for us to go ahead and be meshabech and make days of celebration of days that we were saved from something, which actually the Gemara asked on that mashal. Is that really so? But Rabbi Yitzchak, he actually says, Kasha rim lameis, the worms are so painful for a dead person, kemachad bebasar chai, like pins and needles in the flesh of a live person. Shlomek says the pasuk in Eve, it says ach besari, but his flesh, it's talking about the dead person, olav yichav, over itself he's going to be pained. The nafshay and his soul, Allah Ta'aval, is going to mourn over his own self. Which means, we see that the dead person does have pain in his body. How could you say dead flesh doesn't feel any pain? Ema rather says the Gemara, Ein basar hameis shebachai. What we mean to say is, dead flesh that grew on a live person, because let's say a wound or let's say a burn where you have dead skin, that's not margish bizemel. That does not feel anything from the scalpel when you cut it off. And that's what we mean to say. We're just like the dead skin on the live person. We don't chop anything. We don't feel anything. So those are three reasons why we also don't write the days that miraculous nature happened. So, but that's one thing about this individual of Chananya ben Chizkiya. Another thing, Rabbi Yehuda Merabi says, Baram, he says in truth, Zachar Eisa Isla Tov, you have to remember that person for the good. For Chananya ben Chizkiya Shemai, and his name was Chananya ben Chizkiya. Shalmali, who, if not for him, Nignas Sefer Cheskel. The Sefer Cheskel would have been concealed and hidden away forever. Why? Shayidvar V'Sais in Divrei Torah. The words in Sefer Cheskel was actually contradictory, seemingly, to the words of the Torah. For example, one example is, it says in Sefer Cheskel, Nevela and Treifa lo yichla hakahanim. What, the Kahanim are not allowed to eat Nevela, but a Yisrael is allowed to? And although there's another pasuk that says, V'chein tas b'shiva b'chaydish. Where do we find a carbon in the Torah mentioned by those dates? So what did this Chananya do? Helu like gimel meiz garvi shem. He brought up 300 barrels of oil to his attic, because for illumination purposes, to be able to have light, and also for sustenance, where oil sustains a person. V'yashav ali, and he stayed in his attic. V'darshan, and he expounded, as one example, as the Gemara brings in Menachos of Memeim and Aleph, that why do we have to say that a kohen can't eat nevela? Any Jew can eat not eat nevela, is because since the Kohanim are allowed to eat the chatha sa'if in the base of Mikdash, which has malika, which malika is just taking the thumb and cutting up the neck, which is a nevela. So I would have thought to say that he's allowed to eat nevela. So we have to say that no, by chulin is not allowed to, because that is going to be nevela, and therefore it's not a contradiction. We have to tell you about the Kohanim. And that's why we find that he was up in the upper story, which that takes us to the next part of the Gemara, which was they came to his attic to visit him. He was busy resolving Sefer Yechezkel, and they found that there was the students of Shammai were more than the students of Hill, and B'Shmeina Aser Davar Gazra. As the Mishnah says, they made 18 decrees on that day, where Beis Shammai went and made their stringencies over the school of Beis Hill. Says the Gemara, our Mishnah doesn't tell us. What are these 18 things that the first 10 that we're going to describe all have to do that relate to the laws of Tumah, and specifically regarding that they become a Sheni L'Tumah. And therefore it has significance primarily only for the laws of Truma, because Chulin can only become a Sheni. Chulin cannot become a Shlishi, which we have the laws of a dead person is considered an Aviyah Vaisa Tumah, is a grandfather Tumah, a dead chariots, or someone that touches a dead person becomes an Ava Tumah. Every time the transmission, it gets lower by one step. So chulin, so let's say a person or a vessel biblically could only become a rishon l'tumah. Foods could become a sheni l'tumah, but chulin ends by a sheni. Then truma could become a shlishi, and then kachim could become a revi. But that's that's the max. So the things we're going to describe over here were the gezerah that we made these things into a sheni, and therefore they're problematic for the laws of truma. We learn in the Mishnah. It's a Mishnah Masechet Zavim. The Mishnah says like this: Elu paisum esad truma. These are the things that are going to invalidate truma. The word paisel is very important, because if it would say mitam esad truma, that would mean it's going to make truma tame, that it could then contaminate something else. If it's saying it's paisel esad truma, it means to say it invalidates the truma, but the truma is not going to invalidate anything else. That means to say it's making the truma into a shlishi, which that means to say these things of the list we're going to describe right now is that they're becoming into a sheni l'tumah. So the first one is ha'oichel oichel rishon. If someone eats a food item that is a rishon. Now, like we said, biblically, a person cannot become tummy from food that he eats. The only time he can become tummy is if he eats the nevela from a kosher bird. But let's say if he eats the nevela of a kosher animal, as the Gemara says in Nida, he does not become tummy. Because like the Gemara says over there, only a type of tumah that only comes when you eat it, because the tumah of a nevela of a bird is only when it's in your throat. That's the unique halacha by nevela of a oif. But let's say a nevela of an animal, which doesn't have that halacha, actually you don't become tummy by eating. So for sure, as Rashi is coming to explain, if you're eating a meichel that's a rishon l'tumah, that if it's not an ava tumah, the person who eats that food item is not going to become tummy. So what's this halacha we're saying, if you eat a rishon l'tumah, that you become tummy? So that's what we're saying. As the Gemara is coming to explain, this was a decree that they made that day, and the Gemara is going to explain why did they make the tumah. As the whole machlekes Rashi and Taisa seemingly is this comparable to the famous halacha of tumas gevi that we mentioned throughout Shas. Throughout Shas, we mentioned something that when a person eats tummy foods, then for the laws of truma we consider them as tummy. Rashi seems to say that it's the same halacha. Taisa says clearly it's not the same halacha. But be that as it may, we have this halacha of someone eats a rishon l'tumah. You're right, biblically he's not going to be tummy, because he can only become tummy from an ava tumah. And even by food item, it's only by something that's an nevela of a oif. So what are we saying here that he becomes tummy is a gezerah de rabbanan, and the Gemara will explain why we made this gezerah. Now, so too va'oichel oichel sheni. The second gezerah was if someone eats a food item that's a sheni l'tumah, that's going to be the same thing, which Tais is bothered. Well, why didn't you just say sheni? For sure that's going to include a rishon. So Tais says, no, had we said only oichel rishon, so then I wouldn't have known oichel sheni. Had I said oichel sheni, I would have thought to say if you eat a rishon l'tumah, that actually makes the person not only that he could invalidate truma, that he can make the truma even tummy. Because if he's eating a rishon, then maybe he becomes a rishon, and then when he touches the truma, it becomes a sheni, and then the truma can make something else into a shlishi. Therefore, we have to tell you, no, if you eat a oichel rishon or a oichel sheni, that then you're going to be tamei, that you're going to make the truma puzzle, but that's it. It's only going to invalidate. It's not going to contaminate anything further. The third gezerah was fashesa mashkin tameim. If someone drinks liquids that are tamei. Now, Taisa says, why by liquids did we not differentiate if it's a rishon or a sheni? Because by liquids there's no difference, because all liquids automatically become a rishon l'tumah. So therefore, it doesn't make a difference. A rishon or a sheni of a liquid is always going to be a rishon. So therefore, we're not differentiating and making it into two different gezeres like we made by food items. But the third gezer was, if you drink liquids that are tamei, then the person is considered tamei, that is going to make truma pasul. The fourth gezerah was vahaba. If you have someone that had immersed themselves from his tumah, and he came into Reishi Beruba Maim Shuvim, his head and the majority of his body came into drawn water. So he goes into a bathtub. He went to the mikveh because he was tummy. And that same day, he goes into drawn water. So the halacha is that he's going to be tummy. Now, Taisus wonders, what do you mean? Of course you're going to be tummy, because one of the cases we're going to describe is a tful yom. A tful yom, someone that immersed himself that day, is considered tummy for the laws of truma. Why do you have to say a case of someone that toiveled and then he went into drawn water, which the Gemara is going to explain why we made the gezeres. Why should that make you tummy? Why can't you take a bath after you go to the mikveh? But we made a gezerah that you are considered tummy for laws of truma, but you're a tefillim anyway. Why do you have to say that gezerah? So he says the nafkamina would be that even if the sun sets, if we're at laws of tefillim is not going to be anymore. No, because it has to be that that the bathtub problem was right after he went to the mikveh. So if that's the problem, so for that whole day anyways it's tefillim. So that's what Taisa says, that even after sunset, which then he wouldn't be a tefillim anymore, he's still puzzled until he goes to the mikveh another time, because since he went to the bathtub right after he went to the mikveh, so therefore, as the Gemara will explain why we're concerned in that, why we're making you tamei, but that's the Gezer D'Rabbanan, and therefore you're going to be considered tamei for laws of Truma. No, the Gemara will explain, because it's a concern that if you go to the bathtub, people are going to think, oh, what's really purifying you is the bathtub, so not to. Right after, or it's on that same day. Yeah, that the person cannot go to the bathtub. Now, v'tahar, the fifth gezer was a pure person, where he was never tummy. Shenaflu al roisha berubai, that it fell on him specifically. The wording here is specific, that it fell on his head and the majority of his body. Shleish lug amayim shuvim, 3 lug of drawn water. Which Taisa wonders why by the tar person didn't they make the same gezerah as the person that was tummy and immersed himself? Which, as the Gemara is going to explain, why did it be a problem with a tar person? Because it might come to be, you might confuse it with the tummy person too. But why is it only a shower, let's say, for example, versus a going into the bathtub? Why wasn't even by a bathtub? So Taisa explains, because as we'll see in the Gemara, the way they used to do it when they went to the mikveh, they would have people throw water on them. They would take like a shower afterwards, not a bath. So therefore, really, that's the case that we're really concerned about, because people might think what really purified them was the shower and not the mikveh. So therefore, we weren't more stringent on the person who's tar anyway, which only gezerah, more than what was really the concern. But by the person that was the actual tummy person, for him we were stringent even by him going into a bathtub. That's also going to make him tummy if he went into the bathtub after going to the mikveh. The sixth gezerah was vahasefer. All holy writings, Torah, Navim, Ksuvim, if they touch truma, it's going to make the truma tummy. A sefer, what's a sefer? Sefer is not tummy. It doesn't make a difference. That was the gezerah. We'll explain why that is. That it's going to make truma pasul. The seventh gezerah was v'hayadayim, which regular hands, which we know in the laws of netilas yadayim, that unwashed hands are, if they touch truma, are going to invalidate them. The eighth one was v'hatful yom, regarding someone that immersed himself that day, which the Gemara later on is going to ask and actually reject this and delete it from the list. Tful yom is actually biblical. A tful yom, someone immersed himself that day, is okay for meiser, but for truma, that's a biblical halacha that invalidates truma. And then number 9 is v'ha'oichlim, food items, and number 10 is v'ha'kelim, and vessels shenitmu, which if they became tamei from b'mashkin, from tamei liquids, which the Gemara is going to explain exactly what that halacha is, then those things, if they come in contact with truma, are going to invalidate it. Now, we're just going to explain the first halacha, which not even explain the halacha, but just going to say man tana. Who's the tana of this mishnah? Who's saying this, that ha'oichel oichel rishon, that if someone eats something that's a food item, that's going to make, or va'oichel oichel sheni, or eats a food item that's a sheni l'tumah, that mifsal pasli. What it's going to do is it's going to invalidate the truma, meaning that truma is not going to invalidate other truma by touching it. It's going to invalidate it, but Timuya is going to turn on top of Vidalim and Alf, loy mitamu. It's not going to make the truma tamei to make it into a sheni, which then if the truma is a sheni, you can make other truma into a shlishi. No, who's the time of the Mishnah that says that if a person's eating a rishon l'tumah or a sheni l'tumah, that is going to make the person into a sheni, either one, because now we're saying when he touches the truma, it becomes a shlishi, that makes the truma pasul. if it made the person, let's say, if he eats a rishon into a rishon, when he would go ahead and touch the truma, it would make it into a sheni, which would then make the other food into a shlishi. So who's the Tan that's saying whether you eat a rishon l'tuma or sheni l'tuma, it's going to make you, the person, into a sheni that's going to make the truma into a shlishi. So Rabbi Bochani says, Rabbi Shuhi, that's not like in Mishnah B'Sek this tyrus. Rabbi Eliezer, he says, rishon. So first we bring a different opinion. Rabbi Eliezer says if you eat a rishon l'tuma, you actually become a rishon, and therefore it's not like the halacha we just said. He says if you eat a rishon, you become a rishon, then you make the truma into a sheni, which then that truma is going to make something else into a shlishi. And he says, if you eat a sheni, then you become a sheni too, which means to say then you're going to only invalidate the truma and you're not going to make it tamei. So according to him, whatever you're eating, you become like that. An oichel shlishi, if you eat a shlishi, you become a shlishi. You don't actually invalidate the truma at all when you touch it. But it would be a problem for kachim, because as the Gemara says, kachim, and the Gemara there explains the reasoning for the machlekes, but kachim could become a revi. That's Rabbi Eliezer, who our Mishnah is not like that. Our Mishnah is like Rabbi Shloimy. He says, if somebody eats a rishon l'tuma, then sheni, in either case, is going to be a sheni l'tuma. And the Gemara there explains, why is that? Don't we usually say that it's a step down? How could a sheni make the person into a sheni and a rishon? Is because we find that a sheni makes something else into a sheni. How's that possible? Doesn't it usually go down a step? When you have liquids, if let's say you have a tamei foods, that's a sheni, and you have liquids on it, the food that's going to touch that food is also going to become a sheni. Why? Because the liquids become a rishon. So when the other food touches the food that's a sheni l'tuma, it's also going to become a sheni. So therefore here, by the laws of this gezerah, they're also stringent, and we find such a precedent. So we made that the person who eats the sheni will also become a sheni. Now this next case is a little bit complicated, but that's the last thing we're going to learn, is shlishi. If someone eats a shlishi l'tuma, his body becomes a sheni l'kodesh. It becomes a second degree tumah for the laws of kachim. Why is that? So the Gemara there explains, when you eat a shlishi, it's talking about chulin that was made on the standard of tahara only of truma. Now the thing is, the tahara of truma is like tamei for the laws of kachim, because kachim are more severe in their sanctity. So therefore, although you protected this food item, and it's only a shlishi, it's not such a severe level of tumah, but that's not really considered protected in the laws of kachim. So therefore, we're concerned that maybe this quote-unquote shlishi l'tumah, which is not such a severe tumah, is maybe a rishon l'tumah. That's what we're concerned for. And therefore, if you're eating it, then you become a sheni. So therefore, when you eat a shlishi, you become a sheni l'kodesh, but the ain't sheni l'truma, not a sheni b'truma, because that chulin was protected on the status, as the Gemara explains, that what type of chulin are we talking about that could even become a shlishi? Chulin could only become a sheni, I thought. How could you have a chulin that's a shlishi that we're treating you as a sheni for laws of kachim? It's b'chulin shanasu al taharas truma. Tuma chulin that was made on the level of tahara of truma, because regular chulin cannot become a shlishi. So that's that unique last halacha where Rabbi Yeshua is saying, and he's the Tan of our Mishnah in Zavim, who's the Tan of our Mishnah over here, regarding the Yud Ches Dvarim. If you eat a rishon or a sheni, you will become a sheni. Why? Because we find the sheni can make a sheni. And if he eats a shlishi, how could you have a chulin that's a shlishi? It was nasal taras truma, and truma could become a shlishi, so it gets the halachas of truma. But for laws of kachim, we're concerned that actually it's a rishon, so therefore the person, and we're not going to consider you as a rishon because only gezer for kachim, so we're going to make you, the person who eats it, as a sheni for laws of kachim, but not for truma, because for truma you are considered as a shlishi, which is not going to go ahead and validate anything else. For that you did have a level of tahara. So some of the ideas we spoke about in today's daf, Daf Yud Gimel in Mesechtes Shabbos, was we had the halacha of the Mishnah that we spoke about. We spoke about harchakis in the Mishnah regarding Erev Shabbos. So we had a similar harchak we spoke about. A zav shouldn't be eating with a zava. Now we didn't say lo yochel hatar imatmeya. That just comes to show how widespread was the laws of tahara in the Jewish people, that of course the husband, if he's tar, is not eating with a wife that's tamei. We just had to tell you that even if they're both tamei, he's a zav and she's a zava, that still they're not supposed to eat together because it might come to lead to marital intimacy. So too, we said in the Brisa that even a zav and two zavim, but if one of them is a parish, that he should not be eating with the ama aretz, because either shemi chalen dvarim shein musakam is going to feed him things that are tevel, that are not appropriately tithed, or no, roiv amaratzim amasim, that would be gzeira, is that yes, he's going to feed him dvarim tmeim, but what do you mean? He's a zav, he's also eating dvarim tmeim, but we're concerned b'mei tarasa, he might come to feed him things that are tummy when he is tar, and therefore he's not supposed to eat with the zav that's a amaretz. Then we spoke about the laws of archakis as they apply to the laws of nida. So what's the halacha? Could he sleep in the same bed as his wife if they're wearing the clothing? So he said, first of all, there's no raya from the isser of halah, which is putting the chicken on the same table as cheese, where there Beis Hillel said that it's forbidden because there we say that there's no deus, which means say you're one person. If you're middle of eating, you might come to eat the cheese at the same time as eating the chicken. That's forbidden. But by the case of the husband and wife, where there's two people, maybe that's permitted because one spouse will remind the other one that's forbidden for them to have marital intimacy. And actually, it's actually obvious like that answer because we find the safe of that Mishnah that says when you have two guests, that it is permitted for them to eat together. Says the Gemara, but we said that if they recognize each other, then actually it's going to be forbidden. And husband and wife, they recognize each other, so actually it should be forbidden. You're proving from Hashem that's permitted because you have two different people. We said no, that's only if they don't know each other. If they do know each other, it is forbidden. So by the husband and wife should be forbidden. I said no, there's another thing by husband and wife that we don't have over there because they're doing a shinui. They're wearing their clothing. That's not normal for them to sleep in their clothing. So therefore, maybe it's going to be permitted. As actually we have the halach as a basa b'chalav that we say if there's a placemat, let's say, if you're doing some type of difference, there's not only deus, but there's also shina actually is going to be permitted. So maybe it would be permitted. Whereas by the Achsanayim, we said, I know in the case of our Mishnah, which is why it came in, the Zav eating with the Zava, there's no change. They're eating the same way as they always do. Maybe even when there's two different people, we are concerned that it might come to eat one from the other, and therefore there it's going to be forbidden. Now the Gemara ultimately concludes that we compare in the pasuk the nida to Eishes Re'ehu. And just like by a friend's wife, obviously you're not allowed to sleep in the same bed with her, even if they're wearing clothing. So too the nida, that's the Gemara's conclusion that it is going to be forbidden for the laws of Archakas to sleep in the same bed even if they're wearing the clothing. Now says the Gemara, that disagrees with Rabbi Das, because he says that biblically the only problem is tashmish. Rabbinically we're going to make it by closeness of the skin. But with the clothing, that's not even going to be rabbinically prohibited according to Reb Pedas. Now we brought a story with one student who relates to the halachas of harchakis, which we speak about passing things, and one of them is sleeping in the same bed, and that's why he was punished, because ultimately they slept in the same bed, even though they didn't do anything in that sense of tashmish, that's forbidden, therefore baruch hamakom sheharaga. Then we spoke about the next Mishnah, which spoke about, and these are from the halachas of from the 18 things, which goes back to the halacha, as we said, there's a vav, which we said we proved from a brayso that's going back in the previous Mishnah, which the first two are lo yafala and v'lo yikra, which we said that is lo'er haner, both of them as we explained in the previous daf. You're not allowed to check for lice or read to light up a candle. And then these are from the 18 things which the Gemara has explained. What are the 18 things? Now it's just some interesting facts about Hanani ben Chizkiah. It was in his attic that they made this 18 decrees. He was the one who wrote Megillus Tainus, and also, if not for him, the Sefer Cheskel would have been hidden because there were seemingly contradictions between Sefer Cheskel and the Torah. Now, he wrote Megillus Tainus. What's with us? We're not Mechav the Tzaras. We are, but if we would write, we wouldn't be sufficient because we have so many Tzaras. And also, since we're so numb, we don't realize we're like a shaita, or like, again, a different metaphor is that like the flesh of a dead flesh in a live person doesn't realize the pain, and therefore we don't even realize how many sufferings we have that we're miraculously safe from. So then we started the Gemara, that what are the 18 gezeres from that day? So he said that there are 10 things that are sheni l'tama. Therefore, they are pais lesser truma, which is very significant because that makes it into a shlishi, which it doesn't continue any further. It invalidates the truma, but it's not going to go any further because the truma could only go as much as shlishi. What are these 10 things? So he said if someone eats a rishon l'tama or a shein l'tama, which we said that's going like Rabbi Shua, that was the last Gemara we just learned, that he says whether you eat a rishon or a sheni, it's going to make the person into a shein l'tama. Unlike Rabbi Eliezer, he says whatever you eat, if you eat a rishon, you become a rishon, sheni you become a sheni, shlishi become a shlishi. Our Mishnah in Zavim, which is what the 18 things we're discussing, goes like Rabbi Shua, who says you're going to become a sheni, because making a rishon that make you into sheni, that makes sense, because every time there's transition, that makes one step down. But sheni, we find that you could have a sheni that makes a sheni with liquids, and therefore we could make such a precedent. Then we said the third one was if you drink mashkin tamein. Then the fourth one was if a person that went to the mikveh, then he goes into a bathtub of drawn water, he becomes tamei osa b'truma. Or if he's a tar person that it fell on his head, 3 lugin of mayim shuvim, he also becomes tamei for truma. If a sefer touches truma, or yadayim touch truma, or a tful yom, which we ultimately take out because that's actually deraisa, or food items or kalim that became tamei from liquids, which our Gemara is going to explain at length what type of liquids are we talking about. When they go ahead and they touch truma, it's going to make them puzzle, which means say it makes it into a shlishi, which invalidates the truma. Thank you to any time for hosting us.